Hello, dear friends. I hope you had a peaceful and relaxing day. Now it's time to let go of all the stress. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and step with me into a calm, dreamy world of bedtime stories. So let's begin tonight's tale. And after the story, don't forget to tell me how you liked it, and when and where you're listening from. I'll be waiting in the comments. In the quiet, rolling hills of Eldermere, where the grass grew like velvet and the wind whispered old lullabies, there stood a cottage of crooked stones and twisted ivy. Few in the surrounding villages ever saw the one who lived there, but they spoke of him in hushed voices by the hearth. He was called Elarion, the last magician of Elowyn. Elarion had hair the colour of moonlight and eyes like deep water. He was older than most trees, but he moved as softly as a summer breeze. Those who caught glimpses of him said he was always humming, songs that sounded like distant bells or like stars breathing in the night. But this is not a tale of mystery. It is a tale of kindness, of a gentle magic, and of an old magician's final gift. Elarion had not always lived alone. Once, long ago, Elowyn was a city that shimmered beneath the canopy of an enchanted forest. The people who lived there were peaceful folk, herbalists, weavers, musicians, and they revered magic as something sacred. Not powerful, not dangerous, but deeply, beautifully sacred. Elarion had lived in Elowyn's heart, teaching children to speak with owls, to find music in raindrops, and to stir dreams into their teacups. He was loved. But time, as it always does, changed the world. Elowyn fell into legend. Its buildings turned to mossy stones, and the people forgot the old songs. Elarion, untouched by the years, had wandered out into the wild and made his home where no roads led, just beyond the edge of memory. Every morning, Elarion rose before the sun. He lit a candle that never melted and poured tea into a cup that filled itself. He spoke softly to the herbs hanging from his ceiling, and they rustled back in their sleep. Then he walked, down the hill, through the misty glade, past the old standing stones carved with forgotten letters. He walked until he reached the quiet pond where dragonflies hovered like tiny lanterns. There he would sit, watching the day unfurl like a scroll of silk. He no longer cast spells, not the big kind anyway. There were no dragons to tame, no towers to defend. The magic he practiced was the smallest kind, the one that made roses bloom in winter, that turned tears into feathers, that helped foxes find their lost kits. But one evening, as twilight folded itself across the sky, a visitor came to his cottage. She was no older than 10, with tangled curls and muddy boots. Her name was Isla, and she was crying. "I followed the fireflies," she said between sobs. "I was just looking, I swear, but now I can't find my way home." Elarion crouched beside her. "Fireflies are known mischief makers," he said gently, "but they never mean harm." She looked up at him. "You're the magician. Some say so. Can you send me home with a spell?" Elarion smiled. "I could, but it's better to walk. The land remembers your steps." So together they walked back through the forest. Along the way he taught her to listen to the chirp of crickets, to the rustle of leaves, to the distant hoot of an owl that knew her name. When they reached the edge of her village, Ela turned to him. "Will I ever see you again?" "Perhaps," he said, his voice like warm wind, "if the fireflies find you." And they did. Over the years, Ela visited often. Sometimes she brought questions, how to soothe nightmares or how to make a daisy chain that wouldn't wilt. Sometimes she brought silence, just to sit beside him and watch the water. Elarion saw the seasons change through her eyes. He saw wonder bloom anew. He began to teach again, not with lessons or books, but with stories. Each tale he told her held a piece of old magic, a riddle that opened doors, a lullaby that lulled the stars. One winter evening, she arrived with a heavy heart. "My mother is sick," she whispered, barely audible over the snow. Elarion reached into his satchel and pulled out a pouch of petals that glowed faintly. "Steep these in moonlight. Let her sip the tea before she sleeps, and sit beside her. Love is a spell stronger than most." Isla nodded, eyes wide. "Will it work?" "It always does," he said, and it did. Years passed, and the little girl became a young woman. Isla's hair grew long, her laughter richer. She still came to visit, now with a journal in hand. She wrote down everything Elarion said, every story, every poem, every fragment of stardust he spoke. "Why do you write them down?" he once asked. "So I won't forget." He looked at her then with an unreadable expression. "Then let me tell you one more. Long ago, before Elowin's end, there was a tree unlike any other. It grew at the center of the city, its branches silver and leaves shimmering gold. It was called the Heart Bloom, and it held the memory of every kindness ever given. When someone offered bread to a stranger, a leaf would unfurl. When a lullaby was sung to a crying babe, the bark would glow. Over centuries, the tree grew radiant, so full of light it could be seen from the sky. But when Elowin fell, the heart bloom withered. Its roots drank sorrow, and the leaves fell like forgotten dreams. Except for one. The last leaf glowed faintly, a memory of a magician's promise. He had said, "Even in the end, I will carry the light." That light, Ela realized, was Ilarion himself. Spring came again. The hills bloomed in wild color. The birds returned, singing songs they'd learned from stars. But Ilarion, the last magician of Elowin, grew quiet. His walk slowed, his humming faded. He spent long hours watching the clouds pass. One day, Isla found him seated beneath the old willow by the pond, eyes closed, a smile on his face. "I think," he said softly, "my time has come." Isla knelt beside him, tears already forming. "Don't say that. Everything beautiful must rest, child. But the story does not end. You've written it all. You've kept the light." She grasped his hand. "You can't go. I'm not going far." With a breath like the hush of snowfall, Ilarion reached into his robe and drew out a single golden leaf, the last light of Elowin. He placed it in her hand. "Plant this," he whispered, "where love is strong, where stories are told." And with that, the wind grew still and the magician's breath faded into the twilight. Isla wept, but the trees whispered comfort. The pond shimmered in sympathy, the fireflies danced. She planted the leaf beneath the willow, and she waited. Days passed, then weeks. Then one morning, a sprout pushed through the soil, silver-stemmed, golden-leafed. The heartbloom had returned, not in the city of old, but in the soul of a new storyteller. Years later, travelers came to Eldamir not for the hills or the mist, but to visit the storyteller beneath the tree. Isla, now older, with silver in her curls, would greet them with a smile. And the tree grew tall. It rose not with urgency, but with purpose. Each leaf of gold unfurled as if kissed by memory. Its bark, pale as pearl, shimmered beneath sun and moon alike. Villagers who passed by stopped to stare, not because it was grand, but because it made them feel something they hadn't felt in years. They called it the Tree of Remembering. And beneath it sat Isla, the story keeper. She was no longer the curious child who once chased fireflies into the forest. Her hands had grown calloused from writing, and her eyes carried the quiet weight of many years. But in her smile lived the warmth of every tale Ilarion had once told. Her days were filled with visitors. Children, weary travelers, scholars, even skeptical merchants drawn by rumor. Some came for stories, some came for the magic, but all, in some way, came in search of light. The Whispering Book. After Ilarion passed into the hush between worlds, Isla had found something in his old cottage, a dusty leather-bound book, sealed with a silver clasp. It had no title, but when she opened it, the pages whispered. Not words exactly, but the sound of wind in leaves, laughter in a garden, the purr of a cat curled in the sun. The book did not tell stories, it remembered them. And as Isla read, the stories returned. One by one, they flowed from her lips like old rivers finding their course. Tales of candlelit promises, of enchanted wells, of stars that fell to earth and stayed behind as children. These stories filled her days. She wrote them down in new pages. She shared them with anyone who asked, but she noticed something else too. The tree responded. Every time she told a story that made someone smile, the tree would glow faintly, its leaves catching firelight that wasn't there. When someone cried from remembering something they thought forgotten, the tree shimmered with silver. And so she understood the heartbloom was not just a tree, it was a keeper of memory. Ah, a child with cloud-coloured eyes. One morning, as the fog curled low around the hills, Isla found a child sleeping at the base of the tree. He looked no older than 8, with pale hair and skin the colour of morning mist. His eyes, when they opened, were the soft grey of rain clouds. "What's your name?" Isla asked gently. He blinked. "I don't remember. Where did you come from?" He shook his head. No one in Eldamir recognised him. No nearby village had reported a missing boy. And yet he was there, wrapped in silence and mystery. Isla took him in, fed him warm porridge, let him sleep in the old guest bed in her cottage. He rarely spoke, but he watched everything. The way she lit candles, the way she read from the whispering book, the way she smiled at strangers and offered them tea sweetened with starlight. She began calling him Ori, short for Orniel, a name from one of Alarion's stories, a being made of sky and sorrow who had forgotten his song, and slowly Ori began to smile. The seeds of forgotten magic. Weeks passed. Ori stayed. One afternoon, while Isla brewed tea, he wandered to the base of the heart bloom and pressed his ear to its trunk. He heard something, a hum, soft and steady, a heartbeat made of wind. When Ella found him, he looked up and said, "The tree is dreaming." She paused. "What does it dream of?" Ori frowned, thinking, "Of feathers and feathers and feathers falling, and bells in a dark place, and someone waiting." Ela's breath caught. That night she returned to Alarion's book and turned to a page she hadn't opened before. There, drawn in delicate ink, was a picture, a bell tower wrapped in ivy, and beside it, a poem.
"In the tower where no one climbs,
a bell waits for the end of time. When light and memory align, the final magic shall unwind. She closed the book slowly. There was more to Alarion's magic than she had known. The path through the hollow wood. The next morning, Isla packed a satchel. She tucked the book inside, along with 3 glowing stones, a small loaf of honey bread, and a jar of flower tea. She looked at Ori. "Do you want to come?" He nodded instantly. They left just before dawn. The road led them into the hollow wood, a place untouched by axes or fire. The trees there whispered in tongues older than language. Roots curled like sleeping dragons. Shadows moved, but never threatened. Ori walked ahead, barefoot, as if he knew the way. After hours of travel, they found it. A tall tower, broken at the top, covered in ivy and quiet as a grave. The bell hung still, green with age, yet humming faintly with unstruck song. Isla stepped closer. The air shimmered, and then without warning, the wind stopped.
"The memory door."
At the base of the tower was a round door with no handle, just a word etched in silver. "Remember." Ayla placed her palm against it. She thought of Ilarion's smile, of her mother's lullabies, of chasing fireflies with muddy boots, of the day the heart bloom first bloomed. The door opened with a sigh. Inside, the tower was hollow, save for a spiral stair made of woven branches. They climbed in silence, the air growing lighter with every step, as if gravity itself was thinning. At the top, beneath the bell, they found a stone pedestal. Upon it, a bowl of water and a feather that glowed faintly blue. Ori stepped forward. He touched the feather. And in that moment, everything changed. The boy who was not a boy. A light spread from the feather and wrapped around Ori like a cloak. He did not cry out. He simply closed his eyes. Isla called his name, but her voice felt far away. The light grew brighter, brighter, until it burst, like a star collapsing, and then dimmed to nothing. When she could see again, Ori was still there, but something in him had changed. His eyes now shimmered gold. His voice, when he finally spoke, echoed with wind. "I remember," he said softly. "I remember who I was." He turned to Isla. "I am not a child. I am the echo of the last bell of Elowyn. I was made from its final sound to carry the light forward. Elarion left me here, hidden in time, until someone remembered." Tears slid down Isla's face. "You're the last spell," Ori nodded. "The final one, not to defeat darkness, but to hold memory, to be light in forgetting." The bell rings once the bell above them shivered. Ori reached up and with one hand struck it. The sound rang through the sky, deep, pure, clear. It rolled over the hills, through forests and rivers, into hearts that had long forgotten their dreams. And in every village, every quiet place, someone stopped. A child looked up, an old woman wept. A man smiled without knowing why. The sound was not just heard, it was felt. The bell of Elowyn had rung once more.
"The return."
Ori and Isla descended the tower. As they walked back through the hollow wood, the trees bowed gently. When they reached the heart bloom, the tree had changed. Its leaves glowed brighter. The trunk had grown a spiral pattern like the stair in the tower. At its base, a new branch had grown, low, wide, and welcoming. Ori touched the bark. "I must go," he said. "Not far, but away." Isla hugged him tight. "Will I ever see you again?" Ori smiled, the same smile she remembered from the first night she found him. "Perhaps, if the fireflies find you." And then he stepped into the tree. The bark shimmered, and he was gone. The story keeper's legacy. Isla lived many more years. She never stopped telling stories, but now when she spoke there was something deeper in her voice, a quiet power, a gentle magic. Children sat closer, elders wept more easily, and when they asked where she learned these stories, she would look to the heart bloom and say, "They were never mine. I only remembered them. One last leaf." The night before Ayla passed on, she sat beneath the heart bloom with the whispering book in her lap. A breeze stirred. She opened the book one last time and wrote, "Here ends the story of the story keeper, but the tree remembers, and stories never die." She closed the book, leaned back, and let the stars sing her to sleep. In the morning, villagers found her, smiling. Above her, the heart bloom shed a single golden leaf, and from the roots, a soft hum began again. Epilogue: The Child at the Tree. Years later, a girl wandered into Eldermere, chasing fireflies. She found the glowing tree and a book lying open on a bench. She read the first line of the story, and the tree whispered, "Welcome back." The girl's name was Leora. She had hair like river moss and eyes the colour of dusk just before stars appear. She had never heard of Elwyn, never seen magic before. She only followed fireflies out of curiosity, and found something she never expected: a glowing tree, a leather-bound book, and a voice in the wind that said, "Welcome back." The tree that watched, Leora returned every day. She brought crumbs of bread and talked to the tree as if it were a friend. She read the stories out loud, her voice shaky at first, then sure. Each tale seemed to ripple through the air as she spoke, brushing against her skin like the wings of unseen birds. The villagers noticed. The heart bloom glowed more often. Old songs were hummed again. Children began to dream of things they'd never seen. Towers wrapped in ivy, owls with lantern eyes, a man with silver hair whispering to stars. Magic had returned, not loudly, not suddenly, but like the first warmth of spring beneath melting snow. The gift of the book! One morning, Leora found something new tucked in the book's final pages, a letter written in an elegant hand, gentle and slanted like falling rain. To the one who finds this, you are the next story. You are not chosen by fate nor prophecy. You are chosen by wonder. If you still believe in fireflies, in trees that remember, in bells that ring once in 100 years, then the light has found you. Do not guard it, share it. Tell the stories. And when it is your time to rest, leave the book behind. It will wait. Leora read it twice. Then, with trembling hands, she whispered, "Okay, the smallest magic." From that day on, Leora became the tree's companion. She did not cast spells. She did not wear robes. She did not call herself a magician. But she could calm a frightened bird with a word. She could make a sick child smile by placing a pebble in their hand and telling them it was a laughter stone. And she could make grown men stop weeping just by saying, "I know a story like that." The villagers never called her a sorceress. They called her the Lantern Girl, because wherever she walked, even on cloudy days, the world seemed to glow just a little bit more. The dream of again. Years passed, and Leora grew tall. The heart bloom grew taller still, now crowned in silver and gold leaves, a canopy of light visible for miles. Some came seeking answers. Others came simply to sit in silence. One night, while lying beneath the tree with the whispering book as her pillow, Leora had a dream. In it, she stood before a door made of moonlight, and beyond it stood Ilarion. His hair was as bright as it had been in the stories, and his smile warm and worn like a beloved cloak. "You've done well," he said. "I didn't do much," she whispered. "You remembered," he replied. "That's everything." Then he held out a hand, not to pull her forward, but to place something in her palm, a seed, soft, golden, glowing. "Plant this," he said, "when you're ready to sleep." The final planting. Many years later, when Leora's hair turned silver and her steps slowed, she returned to the base of the tree where she had first arrived. The whispering book was no longer hers to hold. She left it on the bench, knowing someone would find it. She knelt beside the heart bloom and dug a small hollow in the earth. She placed the golden seed inside and smiled. "Grow kindly," she whispered, "grow with stories." Then she lay beneath the heart bloom, listening to its hum, and let sleep carry her home. A light that never ends. And so it continues. A child finds the book, reads the stories, hears the tree whisper, plants a seed, tells a tale, the heart bloom glows. The bell echoes across unseen skies. The magician smiles from wherever he waits. Because light, once kindled in the heart of a story, never truly fades. It only waits and dreams and becomes again.